Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching India Today Global. Now, in a bid to push for the acquisition of Greenland, the United States is preparing to deploy aircraft to a key military base in Greenland. According to the North American Aerospace Defense Command, that's NORAD, the aircraft will soon arrive at the Pitofik Space Base in Greenland and said that the deployment would support long-planned regional defense operations. NORAD said the activity had been coordinated with Denmark and that Greenland's government had been informed in advance. Trump has threatened sweeping tariffs starting at 10% on the 1st of February and rising to 25% by June on Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, unless the United States is allowed to buy Greenland. He has said the measures would remain in place until a deal is reached. Meanwhile, Danish soldiers arrived as part of the Arctic Endurance military exercise in Greenland. Denmark has proposed that NATO launch surveillance operations in Greenland with backing from the Arctic Islands authorities. Now, US President Donald Trump today made it very clear there is no going back on his plans to take control of Greenland. In fact, he posted a map showing both Greenland and Canada in the colors of the US flag. There is an intense pushback from European leaders, and this controversy has pitched NATO versus NATO. Donald Trump says he has agreed to a meeting of the various parties in Davos, Switzerland, but insists Greenland is imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back. We get you more on the biggest transatlantic face-off over Greenland.
No, I don't care about the Nobel Prize. We stopped 8 wars, and maybe we'll be stopping a 9th very soon. We'll see.
With that familiar grievance, Donald Trump escalates his boldest claim yet: complete and total control over Greenland. And then comes the post. US President Donald Trump shares an AI-generated map of the United States that includes Greenland, Canada, and even Venezuela, all shown as part of US territory. A provocation that has allies rattled and redraws borders with just a click.
We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place.
Europe has hit back and hard. EU Commission chief calls for a new independent Europe, an upgraded Arctic strategy, and full solidarity with Denmark and Greenland.
Full solidarity with Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. The sovereignty and integrity of their territory is non-negotiable. Europe is preparing its own security strategy, which we plan to publish later this year. And as part of this, we are upgrading our Arctic strategy too.
Russia has also weighed in.
Мы не имеем отношения к этому вопросу.
In principle, Greenland is not a natural part of Denmark, is it? It was neither a natural part of Norway nor a natural part of Denmark. It's a colonial conquest. The fact that the inhabitants are now accustomed to it and feel comfortable is another matter. But the problem of former colonial possessions is getting more and more serious.
Развязки этой проблемы.
And ahead of his Davos visit, US President Trump has turned diplomacy into a spectacle, publicly sharing private messages with heads of state. Donald Trump posts a message from NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte praising his actions and saying he's committed to finding a way forward on Greenland. Trump also shared a private message from French President Emmanuel Macron in which the French president says he does not understand Trump's position on Greenland and seeks further dialogue. This, even as the US president threatens tariff war against France and Macron for refusing to join Trump's Gaza Board of Peace.
Do you have any response to President Macron saying he will not join the Board of Peace?
Oh, did he say that? Well,
Yeah.
nobody wants him because he's going to be out of office very soon. So, that's all right. What I'll do is if they feel like Costo, I'll put a 200% tariff on his wines and champagnes, and he'll join. But he doesn't have to join. If he said that, you're probably giving it to me a little bit differently. But if he actually did say that, but as you know, he's going to be out of office in a few months.
Look at the situation where we are. I mean, a shift towards autocracy against democracy, more violence, more than 60 wars in 2024, an absolute record, even if I understood a few of them were fixed. It's as well a shift towards a world without rules, where international law is trampled underfoot.
Denmark is standing tall. It has deployed soldiers. Its army chief lands in Greenland. The message: Greenland is not for sale. From AI maps to tariff threats, from private DMs to public ultimatums, the war for Greenland is no longer whispered in back rooms. It's loud and it's public and it's heading straight to Davos. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, President Trump has claimed to have ended 8 wars and therefore he believes he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. His consistent claim to win the Nobel along with countries including Israel, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Pakistan and Cambodia who have pushed for his nomination, but instead it was won by Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who in turn handed over the medal to Trump. Interestingly, once the Peace Prize is awarded to someone, it is not transferable. After Machado gave away the Peace Medal, Trump has been frequently questioned as to why he took the medal, to which he replied that it was a very nice gesture. But with this, President's obsession with the Peace Prize has not ended. Trump linked his drive to take control of Greenland to his failure to win the Nobel Peace Prize, saying to the Norwegian Prime Minister that he no longer thought purely of peace as the row over the island that threatened to reignite a trade war with Europe. A day later, Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre, in a statement, replied to Trump that the Norwegian Nobel Committee, which awards the Nobel Peace Prize, is an independent body and not under the control of the Norwegian government. He also expressed his country's stance on Greenland, that it was a part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Norway supports that.
No, I don't care about the Nobel Prize. First of all, a very fine woman felt that I deserved it and really wanted me to have the Nobel Prize, and I appreciate that. If anybody thinks that Norway doesn't control the Nobel Prize, they're just kidding. They have a board, but it's controlled by Norway, and I don't care what Norway says. But I really don't care about that. What I care about is saving lives, and I think I've saved tens of millions of lives. If you look at India, Pakistan, just as won 2 nuclear powers, you look at so many of the countries that were in a 30, in some cases, a 35-year war, and I got it done. We stopped 8 wars, and maybe we'll be stopping a 9th very soon. We'll see.
When private conversations are made public, U.S. President Donald Trump lambasted Britain's deal to cede sovereignty of the Chagos archipelago, including an island with an important U.S.-UK airbase, as an act of total weakness and great stupidity. Washington had last year given its blessing to the deal, which gave the Indian Ocean islands to Mauritius but retained UK control of the Diego Garcia base under a 99-year lease. But Trump reversed that with a typically blunt Truth Social post saying, and I quote, "Shockingly, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so for no reason whatsoever." He further stated that China and Russia have noticed this as an act of total weakness, calling it an act of great stupidity on the part of the UK. Trump added that it is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. Trump's attack heaps new strain on relations with Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who this week spoke out against his ambition to take over Greenland. Responding to Trump's Chagos comments, the British government said the deal was made precisely for national security reasons. Britain forcibly displaced up to 2,000 indigenous Chagosians in the late 1960s and 1970s to establish the base on the Diego Garcia Atoll, but has been given sovereignty to form colony from Mauritius, which it is paying $36 million per year to secure the installation. Recent operations launched from Diego Garcia include bombing strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen in 2024 and 2025, humanitarian aid deployments to Gaza, and attacks against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda targets in Afghanistan in 2001.
I don't think Britain should be embarrassed or humiliated at all, quite frankly. Diego Garcia, which is a small island that was part of the British Empire, was having its sovereignty challenged by the Mauritian government. We've secured that island as a military base for the next 100 years because it is an important military base for the UK and for our NATO allies, including the United States. That was why the deal was welcomed by President Trump and the American administration, because the deal not only secured the island for the next century, but gave us very, very important security guarantees about the functioning of the island and the seas near it. That is the right way to secure the future of the island, and I wouldn't for a second suggest that Britain should be embarrassed or humiliated by any of those decisions.
In some important news on the EU-India FTA, that's the Free Trade Agreement, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in Davos has said that the European Union is close to sealing a landmark free trade agreement with India. She has described the proposed agreement as one of the most ambitious deals the EU has ever attempted. Ursula von der Leyen was speaking at the World Economic Forum and said some work remains, but the deal could create a market of nearly 2 billion people, accounting for almost a quarter of global GDP. She confirmed she'll be traveling to India immediately after Davos. Von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa will visit India and are chief guests at the Republic Day celebrations. Von der Leyen will also co-chair the India-EU summit with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The India-EU trade deal is being described as the mother of all deals. The agreement will be India's largest trade pact, covering 27 developed EU nations such as France, Germany, Spain and Italy. Since 2014, the Indian government has finalized 7 trade pacts, including those with Australia, the UK, Oman, New Zealand, the UAE and EFTA bloc and Mauritius.
Right after Davos, the next weekend, I will travel to India. There's still work to do, but we are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement. Indeed, some call it the mother of all deals.
Now, Russia's Kamchatka peninsula has been hit by its heaviest snowfall in 60 years. Meter-high snow drifts have buried cars and blocked buildings, with over 2 meters of snow falling this month alone. Here's a look on how the residents are coping with the extreme weather. Take a look.
A state of emergency has been declared in parts of Russia after unprecedented snowfall in East Russia. Buildings are under snow, roads completely covered, and people stuck indoors. This is what parts of East Russia looked like due to the country's heaviest snowfall in 60 years. Locals, meanwhile, took to social media to show what their localities looked like. Traffic signals submerged, cars and doorways completely submerged. Locals have been forced to dig narrow paths just to reach the entrance of their apartments. Doomsday-like scenes in parts of Russia as towns are literally buried in snow. And the whiteout zone won't get any reprieve as authorities have warned of the harsh weather conditions continuing. Bureau Report, India Today.
That's all in this edition of India Today Global. But before I go, here's statecraft for you. India's narrowest corridor, the chicken's neck, is under pressure like never before. China, Pakistan and Bangladesh are converging on India's most vulnerable lifeline that could cost India's northeast. Take a look. What happens when a nation's narrowest corridor is constantly tested and increasingly threatened by hostile neighbors? India's most vulnerable lifeline is no longer just a map marking. It is being deliberately showcased. A Chinese ambassador is taken to Bangladesh's Teesta project site, just kilometers from the Siliguri corridor, India's chicken's neck. This is not an infrastructure visit. It is a signal. Because this narrow strip of land, barely 22 kilometers wide, connects 8 northeastern states and over 45 million Indians to the rest of the country. And today, it is under growing pressure. With China expanding its footprint, Pakistan resurfacing in the region, and Dhaka hardening its stance against New Delhi. So is this about river projects and development, or is India's chicken's neck being quietly tested as part of a coordinated strategic squeeze? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. Bangladesh is once again signaling defiance toward India. Mohammad Yunus's interim government has taken the Chinese envoy to the Teesta River project site, just kilometers from India's strategic Siliguri corridor, commonly called the chicken's neck. Bangladesh's water resources advisor, Sayyida Rizwana Hassan, accompanied one to the project area in Rangpur's Tapa Madhupur Taluk Shahbazpur and said that China is keen to start implementing the Teesta master plan as soon as possible. This narrow strip of land connects India's northeast to the rest of the country, and today it has become the focus of a high-stakes geopolitical test. The Siliguri corridor is just 22 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. It connects 8 northeastern states, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, Meghalaya, and Sikkim to India's mainland. Sever it, and these states risk isolation. Now, Bangladesh, under Yunus, with China at the helm of a major Teesta River project, has turned this vulnerability into a strategic chessboard. The Chinese ambassador's visit to the Teesta project is no ceremonial gesture. Yunus is signaling loudly and deliberately. Dhaka is tilting toward Beijing and away from New Delhi. The move comes after a pattern of anti-India rhetoric, tolerated protests, and alignment with regional powers hostile to India. The Teesta River originates in Sikkim, flows through northern West Bengal, and enters Bangladesh. The river is vital for agriculture, livelihoods, and hydropower. Under former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, India had been the preferred partner for its development. Under Yunus, that preference has vanished. China is now leading large-scale dredging, reservoir building, embankments, and land reclamation, converting the Teesta into an engineered economic corridor under Beijing's supervision. But it is the proximity to India's chicken's neck that elevates concern. Lal Moner Hat, a revived World War II-era airbase just 12 kilometers from the corridor, is being upgraded under Chinese supervision. Satellite imagery shows hardened shelters, drone aprons, and underground fuel depots. This is not civilian development. It is dual-use infrastructure with clear strategic implications. And the challenge does not stop with China. Pakistan has quietly re-entered Bangladesh's security equation. On the 8th of November 2025, the PNS Saif, a Chinese-built Zulfikar-class frigate, docked at Chattogram, the first Pakistani warship to do so since 1971. India has already begun responding. New garrisons have been established at Kishanganj in Bihar, Bamuni Gaon in Assam, and Chopra in West Bengal. Plans for a fourth base in Mizoram are underway. The Eastern Command's General Officer Commanding Lieutenant General R.C. Tiwari recently visited Thwampui near Azol to assess security and operational readiness along the corridor. The broader picture is stark. Lal Moner Hat, the Tista River project, and Chattogram are not isolated developments. They are part of a strategic pattern. China, Pakistan, and Bangladesh are testing India's eastern front, using political, military, and infrastructural levers to apply pressure. For Delhi, the message is urgent. The Siliguri corridor is not merely a strip of land. It is a test of India's strategic foresight, military preparedness, and geopolitical resolve. The chicken's neck is under pressure, and the world is watching whether India can secure its northeastern lifeline before encirclement becomes a strategic reality. Thank you for watching Statecraft.